are watching the Jennylyn show, and I am Jennylyn Gleave, your host. And tonight, I'm very happy and honored to have the presence of the two deputies you see sitting here on the set with me. Tonight, I have been fortunate enough to have Deputy Mark Harvey with me, as well as Veronica LaGuardia. They are both deputies of the Santa Clara Police Department or Sheriff's Department, and we are going to be discussing social media with specifically cyberbullying and driving and texting. Mark, thank you so much for coming to my show. Veronica,
thank you for having us.
Thank you. I know that everybody's on social media these days. Everywhere you go, you see people on their cell phones. You hardly ever see people looking up anymore, almost. And I've driven past a few accidents that, from my perspective, where I sat, it appeared like they were driving and texting. So I thought it would be nice to have some deputies come on this show to talk to my viewers and I about how social media is affecting the crime rate these days, whether it's less or more. So Mark, why don't we start with you? Are you guys seeing an increase in criminal activity because of the access people have now with social media?
I wouldn't necessarily say that we're seeing an increased crime rate. I think crime rate, for the most part, has stayed or slightly increased. But what you are seeing is that crimes are being recorded. Okay. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has a camera with them. Everyone's videotaping and recording. So what I think you're starting to see more is people having more access, and they're putting crimes being committed on YouTube, on Facebook, or other social medias, and so you're starting to see it more that way. Because before, people didn't have access to the cameras, and so now that they do, you're just, I think, seeing it more, and you're getting to experience it almost like firsthand.
What does that feel like for a police officer? I mean, police are being accused of more stuff. I'd rather use that word. Like, people accuse police now of doing a lot of things that are politically incorrect sometimes when they make arrests. Do you feel that as a police officer that this is necessarily a good or a bad thing? What do you think about that whole perspective of people making their own little videos about different criminal activity and sometimes accusing the police of being inappropriate?
Right. I think it's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing, right? When you see a video that's, the news is saying is going viral and it involves a police officer, whether it's a use of force or some kind of incident, a lot of the times the people don't have the background, right? So they see what's going on, but they don't understand why we're there or what we were dispatched to, or they came in, halfway through. It's like walking into a movie theater towards the end of the movie and you have no experience of what happened in the beginning of the movie, and all you get to see is the end. So it's difficult, and I think a lot of it is misconceptions, and people don't understand what they're seeing.
Veronica, what's your perspective?
Well, technology is here to stay. It's always updating. It's always increasing. I don't have an issue with being recorded as far as individuals having their cell phones out during a traffic stop or during an investigation, because if I'm doing my job responsibility within my scope and I'm following all the guidelines, all my general orders, all the things I feel are correct,
yes,
I don't have an issue as far as them recording me because I'm doing my job to the best of my ability.
Some police departments are now equipping their police with cameras. Is that happening in your particular unit?
Yes, we're currently testing body cameras. I think you're going to see that eventually all law enforcement will have body cameras, and we already have cameras and audio recording devices inside of our patrol vehicles.
Okay. Do you think that is a good thing?
I think it's a good thing when you have people accusing police of behaving badly, and we can go show them that, hey, this is exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And I think it will bring a lot of transparency to policing, and I think you'll get to see a lot of people getting the full story,
right,
and not jumping to conclusions.
Right. So I know that one of the downsides to having everybody accessible to social media, there's been a few cases that I know of cyberbullying where people are bullying you know, especially among school kids with either texting or on Facebook. Have you guys had a lot of issues with this?
Our school resource officers are the ones that really deal with that firsthand.
Right.
At the patrol level, we will deal with it sometimes.
Yes.
But a lot of the times it's at the school level. So we do see it, and it's starting to become more and more apparent as social media continues to filter down to the younger and younger ages.
Yes. What is your perspective on cyberbullying as a police officer?
As a police officer, it's a pretty terrible thing because it's happening more often, and people, especially children, teens, adolescents, they don't realize the consequences of what they're doing. They may just think that it's a joke, but they don't understand that there's a lot of consequences, and it could have long-term, just not only emotional damage, but possible physical damage to them as well.
Veronica?
It's an increasing issue as far as the young teens, specifically when you're going towards the grades of high school. So some individuals do end up cyberbullying classmates. They hide behind, a computer screen, and that can have a far-reaching effect as far as where that information gets put out to. It can be put out to, the general scope of thousands of people that can access that information. So once that information is out there, it provides, issues as far as the children wanting to go back to school, as far as them feeling issues as far as depression, and also contemplating self-harm. So it's definitely a far-reaching issue, and that's why we have our school resource officers at the school level dealing with the kids that are, committing those issues as far as the information that's put out there in the internet.
What is the punishment for if some young person, say a teenager, just a teenager is found guilty of cyberbullying? What is the punishment? Just so people watching the show could know, look, if this is something I'm doing, maybe I want to stop because this is what's going to happen to me.
So that's kind of a two-part difficult question to answer, right? Because when you deal with juveniles, they don't fall under the normal criminal justice system.
Okay.
They fall under the juvenile justice system.
Okay.
We try not to introduce juveniles to the best of our ability into the criminal justice system. There's been some studies that are going on that it's not necessarily the correct way of dealing with it.
Right.
But you can face, criminal charges. You could, at the school level, you could face expulsion. You could be suspended. You could be held back. There's things that can happen to you at the school level. Not only but we do prosecute on cyberbullying. It is a crime, and that should be known.
A couple of years ago, I worked on a television show. It wasn't my show. I was just crewing on that show. And there was a mother here whose daughter had been bullied to where she tried to kill herself. And she succeeded in slitting her throat. She's now a paraplegic. And her mother was clearly just really fighting to get some type of organization or something going to prevent this from happening to another young person. And I remember leaving that show, going home very disturbed by what she shared on the set. And her daughter had never told her how severely affected she was. And she didn't want to upset these kids, so she kept deleting all the text messages. In the end, that hurt their case because the evidence had been destroyed. And this girl was only 18 years old when her mother was on the show. And so that's been something that I've always wanted to know if there was a way it could be stopped. I know you can't stop bullies, but what is the police department doing to educate these children, if anything, on the dangers of bullying other people? Is there any such thing?
Our school resource officers are our first hand as far as communicating that information with the school and the children. They have presentations monthly with the school organizations as far as what they can do as far as solving the issue or trying to speak to the children and letting them know the dangers of which cyberbullying causes towards individuals that are victims of such issue.
Oh, okay.
So it's important to have that vocalization and our officers out there speaking to the kids who may not actually see the grand scope of the issue, but to have that first-hand account from the officers is very valuable too.
Okay.
I think I'd like to add that it's kind of a three-part solution to the problem, right? You have the schools,
Right.
you have law enforcement, and then you have parents. For especially adolescents, they're starting to develop, and they're starting to, they don't want to associate it so much with their parents, and they want to be with their social friends and the schoolwork and everything like that. The parents need to be involved. They need to know who their kids are talking to, what avenues, what social media programs that they're using, because the social media programs open them up to a lot of different issues, right? And not necessarily so much talking to school children, but you could be talking to someone from New York, and they're pretending to be a 14-year-old adolescent, and they're really not. It could be a sexual predator or something like that. So the parents definitely need to they're pretty much the first line of defense.
Yeah.
They need to be proactive and talk to their kids and let them know, don't talk to strangers and don't give out your personal information, don't send pictures, right? Because a lot of it is, I think that this whole entire phenomenon of sexting.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Is that the kids don't know that it's not only is it wrong and it's a crime, it's child pornography, depending upon the level of the pictures that they're sending, that it opens them up. And that's the whole entire cyberbullying is, someone sends a picture to their boyfriend and then they break up, and so the boyfriend's upset. So what does he do? He sends out this text message and it goes viral school-wide. And that's kind of where it all starts, right? Mm-hmm. That's one instance of cyberbullying to where you have, and it just kind of snowballs. So the parents need to know, they need to talk to their kids. The schools are involved, they know, they want to stop it. And then lastly, the law enforcement will come in, and if there's any kind of crimes, then we'll investigate and then prosecute those crimes.
So sexting is a crime? I did not know that. Not that I do that. But
it's not a crime.
Oh, okay.
But distributing explicit, like nude photographs of minors is a crime. That's child pornography.
Because I heard that's really rampant now in the schools. The girls are, doing stuff that I'd never even known of at that age. But I think that's one of the downsides to social media and just having easy access to just buttons and fingers, right? Mm-hmm. It's so easy to commit these, or I don't even think they ever think about the impact.
Right.
Like when the person they're sending it to and them, split up. So if a girl is seeing someone and she's sending him naked pictures or whatever, or vice versa, and then he sends it viral, would law enforcement get involved?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
I've had a couple of cases where I had to get involved based upon the pictures that were being sent and distributed.
So sad. So I'm happy to hear this then. Do you feel that it's making a difference knowing that the police could get involved and you could get in trouble if you take something like that and share it, make it go viral? Are the kids aware of the impact if the law becomes involved?
I don't think they're aware, and that's where the education is really starting to push, is that mm-hmm. the kids need to understand that it's an issue, that they shouldn't be doing this, and they could face criminal charges based upon it. Most of the time, I'd probably say a majority of the time, there's no malice, right? They're not doing it with a specific intent. They're just being kids. They don't know better. But there are times where they are being malice, and they are trying to hurt someone. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to avoid, obviously.
One of the things I think I know as a young kid, and it came out in the interview that I was referring to where the mother's daughter tried to kill herself, I think that the kids want to be cool, and they don't want to go complaining and ratting off to their kids about their parents about everything. So a lot of the times these kids are suffering, but they don't want to involve their parents, because then the parents will go to the school and then they end up not being so cool and everyone judges them, kind of thing. How do you get these children to understand they need to trust their parents? That's a tough one.
I think as far as parents being able to recognize these signs of mm-hmm. when a child is withdrawn.
Yes.
When, for example, if they don't want to go to school, that's in itself a warning sign. So it's important to kind of see the signs and then go to your son, your daughter, and try to talk to them about what the bigger issue is. Mm-hmm. Try to get that vocalization, try to get that conversation going, even though it's sometimes going to be difficult because sometimes they don't want to communicate as far as what is actually happening at the school level. But as far as the parent is trying and willing to get into the greater scope of the details, hopefully that child is able to see that and eventually open to explaining the issues that are at hand.
Okay. So since you guys have had these educational programs in the schools to like inform the children about, how to protect themselves, or if they feel like they're being bullied, where to go to get help, like you're providing resources for them to get help, have you seen a decline?
Unfortunately, we work nights, so it's right now, like if we're called to a residence or something like that, and
Right.
we get exposed to it that way,
Yes.
then I would say it's probably coming out more per se,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And we encourage kids to go to, if they're not comfortable talking to a parent, maybe a guidance counselor, maybe an adult at school that they trust.
Okay.
Pastor at a church, a youth group, something of that nature, or law enforcement, or a person at school, and get it out there.
Okay. So we know that's one aspect of social media that's had a downside. What about driving and texting? And then I hope before the show is over, you can tell me, as a police deputy, what other criminal activity is rampant because of social media. But for sure, driving and texting, because I pass people every day driving and texting. And I think it's such a risk. I've seen a few accidents where it appeared as though that's what caused the accident. What do you guys have to say from your perspective as a deputy in regards to driving and texting?
It's an increasing problem, definitely. I mean, I drive around all the time on and off duty, and I constantly see people staring at their lap. It's obvious what they're doing. They're texting. It, for the most part, mimics the same driving behaviors as if you're driving under the influence of alcohol. So it's an ongoing issue. It puts you yourself at danger, others in danger, and the general public in danger. So it's something that our office is constantly trying to combat as far as seeing those issues, giving tickets out, but it's something that is going to continue to have a far-reaching effect as far as accidents. So it's important to have that vocalization, let everyone know it is a crime, you can get tickets for it, and to just be aware of your surroundings. You're putting others in danger, and it's not worth it. A simple text can wait.
Have you had a lot of deaths that are related to driving and texting that you guys are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't think that, at least you're starting to see a lot more commercials with, where they're showing car accidents and people possibly getting seriously injured or dying from being involved in a car accident from texting and driving. But we do see it a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of the times that when we're responding to accidents, they've already gotten off their phone or anything else like that, and so or people won't admit to being on their cell phone. So unfortunately, it's not like a contributing factor. We obviously look at everything, and we'll ask people, were you on your cell phone? And I would say a lot of the people aren't being completely honest, and they're saying, no, I wasn't on my cell phone, or they weren't distracted. But sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't.
But you can't tell? The police has no way of knowing? If there's an accident and it was caused by texting or cell phone use, you cannot tell as an officer. There's no way of knowing.
We could ask them if they were on their
But
cell
they
phone.
won't tell
Sometimes
you.
they're truthful, sometimes they're not. We can also ask them if we can look at their phone to see if they were replacing a phone call.
Can they choose to say no?
They can opt out of it, yes.
So it's
Definitely.
not compulsory that they show you their phone?
No.
Got it. That's why people do it.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I think people do it because they know they can probably get away with it, and until they get caught, I can't tell you how many times I'll pull up to a stoplight, and I'll look to my left and to my right, and a lot of the times the people will be on their cell phone and they're completely oblivious. I drive a fully marked police car. It's not like I'm driving around in an unmarked police car or tinted windows or anything like that. I've got lights on top of my car, and it's all painted white, and it says sheriff on the side, and you'll pull up next to him, and you'll just sit and watch. And you'll just take it how long it takes them to realize that there's a cop. And then a lot of the times they'll drop their phone and then just pretend that you didn't see them and that they didn't see you, and maybe it will just go away, or I don't know what they do.
Do you pull them over?
Yes.
And the ticket is how much?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because I saw it changes. Somebody told me it's like $200. The other day I thought I saw 171 when I was driving down the street, and immediately next door to me was someone on his phone, and I'm looking at the sign going, really? Don't you see that sign on the side of the road? So, I mean, there are people that just don't give a lot of credence to the laws. They just don't care. And they think if I get busted, I'll just pay the ticket. So, I guess at the end of the day, it's just about us all being responsible, right?
Right.
You can't beat us over our head with sticks and get us to follow the laws.
No, we can't.
No, I've never broken a law in my life. Okay. No, that's not true. I choose not to, though. I try really hard to always obey the law. So what have you noticed as a police officer? The one thing that you think is really bad because of social media? No, well, maybe not bad, but causes a lot of, problems for law enforcement that's related to social media. Besides the cyberbullying, besides driving and texting, anything else?
I think, for the most part, having your information out there on the internet, for myself, I can just Google my name and I can possibly find an address or a phone number. So I think social media has far-reaching effects more than even just cyberbullying, sexting, texting. All that information is out there on the internet. So just be aware of all the things that you're posting, all the pictures that you're posting, because people can take that information and use it for themselves.
I think the bad thing from it is the fact that once it's out there, it's out there. And if you didn't want it out there in the first place, now it's out there and it's extremely difficult to get it removed. And I think social media uses the guise of freedom of speech. And some people, they didn't have a say or anything, and they didn't want that out there. And now it's out there, and now they have to deal with it and the consequences.
It's so sad because especially young people, some of them are being affected when they go for jobs because somehow these search engines pull up some of what they've posted, some of what they've said, and then it affects your entire life. So is this something you also address at the school system? So these young kids are being, they're made aware of the dangers of some of what they're posting. I know it's not the police responsibility, but I would think that somehow it would be somehow tied into the lectures and stuff that you give to warn them.
I sure hope that vocalization is happening as far as our school resource officers, letting them know the potential consequences which they can face in their future when they're posting such things as far as inappropriate photographs, inappropriate language. So just having that aspect out there as far as our officers talking to the children, letting them know what you post is going to affect you in your future, and just be aware of it and think twice about what you're going to be posting.
The sexting thing, it's really a big problem apparently in the schools, and very young children are participating. Like young girls are sending some ridiculously nude photographs to boys in their class. I mean, do you think this is just because it's so easy to take a picture and send it?
Yes, I mean, that's pretty much, it's the fact that you have instantaneous essentially, right? And our office and law enforcement in general is prosecuting these cases, and they're looked at on a case-by-case basis, right? It's not a blanket statement for every single one. But some of the consequences could be time in juvenile hall. If they're an adult, they could be looking at actual jail time or prison time.
Really? For sexting?
I mean, well, you got to think about the consequences of it, right?
Right.
And child pornography, things of that nature, depending upon the explicitness of it. That's like I said, case-by-case basis, but one of the consequences could be having to register as a sex offender just because you were sending the nude photographs. So, I mean, I think that's a hard concept for teens to wrap their mind around. But for adults, it's a definite serious, that could be one of the consequences.
Mm-hmm. So, Veronica, being a female, do you feel like it's different in law enforcement for females when you see some of the sexting that these girls are, some of the things that young girls are doing?
I wouldn't say it's different, but if you're speaking to a young female, you kind of have that communication as far as you being able to get on their level, me being a female, they being a female, and try to understand why they're going that route as far as sending information over their telephone, over the internet, why they're sending it to a person, and why they feel it's appropriate. So having that conversation on a female and female level can be beneficial too.
Oh, I would hope so. Thank you. So we're almost out of time. Believe it or not, the time always flies. I'd like to give both of you an opportunity to say something to the public from your perspective as a deputy that you think will somehow get a message out there to them to make your job easier and to not break the law. Let's start with you, Mark.
I'll talk about cyberbullying because that was pretty much, I think, the main focus of today, is that cyberbullying is unfortunate and it's increasing. About 97% of students and young adults will experience it, and 100% will see it, whether it's third party or they're involved or something like that. It is a crime, and you can face consequences for it, and we do investigate it fully, and we will prosecute on it. And so we want to make that really apparent that, you know, we're taking this seriously, and we need parents to be kind of our first line of defense and be our eyes and ears and watch their kids, you know, if they're trying to withdraw from their activities or, you know, they seem depressed or whatever else like that, to figure out what's going on so we don't have the kids turning towards self-harm, right, as their escape avenue of dealing with it. And we can attack the problem and get really down to the root cause, and we can work with parents and the schools and really get this taken care of and realize that, you know, it's a serious issue and we need to be focused upon it.
Okay, great. We have 1 minute. You.
I'll talk about the texting aspect, texting while driving. Like I mentioned earlier, it mimics the same behavioral patterns as a person driving under the influence of alcohol. So just be aware that you looking at your cell phone, you texting, is putting yourself and others at danger. And it's just not worth it to send a simple text message, a simple winky face, you know, it's just not worth it. It can wait. Just wait till you're out of the car and send it afterwards. If you are caught on your cell phone, the sheriff's office will write you a citation.
Thank you so much for watching the Jennylyn Show. You've heard from these great deputies on all of the problems that you experience when you break the law. So be like me. Don't break the law and don't do things that will endanger yourself and others. And if you have any questions or you need more information, please send me an email at GIAN21911 and I will get you in touch with them so you can get any other information that we didn't bring you tonight. And thank you for watching the Jennylyn Show. See you next time.